South Africa is concerned about the military action by the State of Israel against the people of Gaza, which we have characterized as genocide, is deeply concerning. This genocide led South Africa to approach the International Court of Justice with a view to stopping the killing of innocent women and children. We do believe that the world cannot just sit by and watch the slaughter of innocent people continuing. South Africa has been unwavering in its support towards all efforts aimed at the establishment of a viable Palestinian state, existing side by side in peace with Israel, within internationally recognized borders based on the 1967 borders, with East Jerusalem as its capital. And this would be in line with all UN resolutions, international law, and internationally agreed parameters. We do call on the international community and the United Nations Security Council to address this spiraling conflict. On our own continent, Africa, Sudan enters its second year of horrific conflict and devastation. This is another conflict that the world seems to have forgotten about. The protracted conflicts in the Sahel and Great Lakes regions in Africa persist. We must find lasting solutions to all these conflicts. We must remain committed to the peaceful resolution of all disputes through negotiation and inclusive dialogue. And we must safeguard the ability of states to pursue independent foreign policy. And we must safeguard the multilateral system, because it is the cornerstone of international relations that fosters an environment of peace and development. Existing global institutional mechanisms need to be both strengthened and reformed to play a constructive role in the international peace and security. We cannot allow conflicts just to continue in perpetuity. We do need to find paths to peace. In our quest for a long, interconnected, just and prosperous world, we have the ability to foster an environment of peace through a focus on sustainable development. We must also continue to support nations and peoples who seek to end the cycle of conflict and choose the path of peace.
For more on this, I'm joined in studio by SABC News International Editor Sophie Mokoena. Sophie, you did anticipate that President Ramaphosa was going to raise the issue of Gaza, and of course he raised other conflicts as well. And I do see that we're expecting to hear the UN Secretary General speak. No doubt he'll be speaking on the same issue, even though at the United Nations itself, he's seemingly been ignored.
Well, you are correct. You know that it has been a norm for South Africa when there are issues to use these kinds of platform to ensure that they are able to bring to light challenges facing other countries, because that's how South Africa was able to put forward its struggle, particularly to mobilize the international community as they did during the struggle. And therefore, South Africa is continuing to ensure that those countries that are still oppressed, that are facing challenges, you are able to speak on their behalf and to emphasize and bring to the attention of the world that this is not justice at all. And therefore, that's what the president did. But also, when you listen towards the end, where he's talking about the independence of foreign policy of countries. I think also when you look at what happened yesterday with the DA, the president was also sending a message that we will continue with the South African foreign policy and no one is going to bully us in terms of changing the foreign policy of the country that is anchored around peace and stability.
So, of course, at the forefront of the declaration, the Kazan declaration that was issued yesterday, was the issue of revamping, overhauling the international financial system.
Yes, all people who spoke and countries that have spoken thus far, they have emphasized that. And this is happening at a time, as you pointed out yesterday, where the IMF and the World Bank meetings are underway in Washington. And you know, when you look at the structure of these important institutions, you'll see that there is no proper representativity in terms of ensuring that all regions are properly represented. You see that when you look at these structures, they are dominated by the developed North. And that's what people were saying, or leaders were saying, member countries were saying, that this must change. You know that what you see today, it's not only the BRICS member states, it is also countries from the South. And therefore, you have a very strong voice from the South that is calling for the transformation of these multilateral institutions. And I can tell you now, that's exactly what Guterres is going to call for, particularly throwing forward to the G20 summit that's coming in Brazil later this year. And therefore, the push for the transformation of multilateral system is gaining traction. And this is the only moment for the developed South or developing South, because they are having this platform, BRICS. But secondly, you know that it was India chairing the G20, Brazil, the G20. These countries are members of the South-South. And you have South Africa going to take over the leadership of G20 next year, South-South. And if the South-South doesn't use this opportunity to push for transformation of the Security Council and the transformation of the financial system or global financial system, I don't think we'll ever have an opportunity to do that, because after South Africa, America will be taking over as the incoming president of the G20, and it's going to be dominated by the developed North, the narrative there. So this is the only moment where developing countries, particularly a continent like Africa, must ensure that they are able to push for transformation of the United Nations, the Security Council, the IMF, the World Bank, to ensure that you have a just world.
Yeah, and I noticed that they've decided that indeed they are going to go ahead and trade in their national currencies, as well as set up a BRICS grain exchange, which could then lead to them, having an exchange that speaks to other commodities like oil and etc. So very interesting indeed.
Yes, you can see this global change. It's happening in front of our eyes. And people who are saying it's not going to happen, they are in denial. It happened after 1914. We had the League of Nations, the intention there to bring together the world. It failed. We then later, after the Second World War, had the United Nations. Right now, it's paralyzed. And you are seeing countries coming up with solutions that can help also to strengthen the very same United Nations. Because if you push for the reforms within the United Nations and the Security Council, including these multilateral institutions that were formed after the World War II, you will be able to change the world again. Yes, you may not come up with a new acronym in terms of the United Nations, but you will be able to change this global body or the global organization that is supposed to serve all member countries.
Thanks very much. Sophie Mokoena, SABC News International Editor there.